Welcome to Fly on the Wall podcast. I'm your host, Chris Sonkson, CEO and founder of Church Boom. Here you get to sit in on a live coaching session as I coach pastors through the ministry challenges we all face. If you find this podcast helpful, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share. Hey everyone, welcome to the podcast. We're so glad that you're checking it out today, talking with my great friend Frank, and we're talking about a lot of great stuff. One of them is about creating a budget that makes sense. It's so important in our church world. Before we jump into that, I want to encourage you to check out everything churchboom.org. We have so many different things that you can be a part of, and we're just there to help you and to grow. I encourage you to dive on in. Leaders are learners. That's what we believe. So make sure to check out churchboom.org. And hey, let's go check out the podcast. Let's jump into it, man. How can I help you? What's on your mind?
Well, my first question, and I tried to, formulate this with my own needs as well as other pastors, a lot of friends and colleagues that I've interacted with. So my first question would be, what advice would you give a lead pastor on implementing, I would say, significant changes in a local church that has a faithful membership, but yet they're kind of divided between status quo and doing new things, embracing new things?
Well, it's interesting, I think, Frank, because I think a lot of churches are there. Over 80% of all churches in America currently are plateaued or declining. So you think 8 out of every 10 churches are plateaued or declining, meaning that they probably are made up of some people that want to move forward and, become a little bit more modern and be a little more progressive, and then some that are just kind of holding on to the way things are. One thing I always say to pastors and leaders is that no church has a future unless its dreams are bigger than its memories.
Okay.
The dreams have to be bigger than the memories. And I think it's important that we understand that at leaders, that the church isn't going to move forward unless we begin to dream and we get people to dream with us in moving forward. The other thing I think is important to remember is that there are what I call early, mid, and late adopters.
Okay.
So you've got some people that are like, okay, Pastor Frank, let's do it. Those are early adopters. You got some people a few months later will tag on, and then late adopters, some will come on and some never will. And you have to keep that in mind as well. I don't know what exactly changes you're looking to make or what adjustments you're looking to make, but one thing I always say is find those that are willing to move forward with you. Start creating wins in what I call invisible momentum. There's visible momentum and invisible momentum. So if you change how you do follow-up for first-time guests, that's, excuse me, it's for some, excuse me, that is that invisible momentum, because most of the church isn't going to see it. You change, you tweak some things in small groups. Most churches, no one's going to get too wound up over it. You start changing the name of the church. You start changing taking the cross off the top and putting out in the lawn. Like whatever. That's when people get all kind of excited. So you want to. What I always tell people is find your early adopters and start working with them. No question about that. Find your mid adopters and start working with them so they can start making the moves. Find your wins, your WINS. Find your wins in what I call invisible momentum, the things that are not so big. Because once you get some wins, you get leaders excited, you get your early adopters excited, you get your mid adopters excited, and then it starts to move forward, and it makes the kind of late adopters not so apprehensive because you've already shown that you have a winning track record. And so rather than going for the big thing, go for the invisible momentum. When invisible being doesn't really mean a lot to a lot of people, but it does show wins. Because when the church starts seeing people come to Christ, when they start, you're doing great follow-up on first-time guests, so now people are coming back and they're giving their life to Christ, and then you baptize 26 people on a Sunday. That's hard to argue with.
Yeah.
When you start seeing the life change. Now, I think it's important to know that there's always one or two or three or whatever, a handful that may never make the move. They may stay with you or they may leave. But you've heard me say this before at a recent conference we were at together, that it's very difficult to lead with authority if you're addicted to approval.
It's so good.
And you just know that a few people are not going to be happy with it. and you just got to move forward with it and do it anyway. So start with the invisible, move towards the visible, focus on the early and mid adopters because they're most likely going to be with you no matter what. The bigger changes come as you gain a winning track record. People are more apt to it's more palatable to them when you have a winning track record.
Wow.
So it's wisdom. It's wisdom on speed. It's wisdom on who you're working with. It's wisdom on who you're bringing in to the knowledge of things. But with that said, again, back to the first statement, no church has a future unless its dreams are bigger than its memories. You got to have, you can't let your dreams and the dreams that God put into your heart be dictated by 4 people.
That's so good.
You just can't, and I think a lot of guys do. I think we get a little afraid of that confrontation, afraid of losing them. I was talking to a pastor recently, and he said, man, I feel like if I talk to this guy, I'm going to lose him. Mm. And I said, well, does he do a lot for the church? Well, he helps out in a certain area. He's kind of a leader in a certain area. Okay. Does he give anything? He hasn't given in 8 months. I said, well, 0 minus 0 is 0. If you lose him, you're not losing. You're not a dominant leader in the church. He hasn't given in 7 or 8 months. Like, I don't mean to be mean, but 0 minus 0 is 0. Like, and I think sometimes we get wound up on people getting upset with us. And I'm not saying if it's the entire church, that's different. It's half the church that's different. But when it comes down to it, it's usually a handful of people. Last thing I'll say to you is this. Mm-hmm. When you're making a change, remember that the meeting before the meeting is the most important meeting. Okay. So let's say you've got, 6, 7 board members, 10 staff, and, 85, 90 leaders, whatever. You've got to know who's the people that when we talk about this are probably going to have the biggest issue. It's not going to be, out of 80, it's not going to be 50. It's probably going to be 1 board member and 2 key leaders. Okay. So before I ever bring it to everybody, I get them on board. Hey, Tom, I had breakfast with you this morning. There's some things that have been on my heart. There's some things that I've been talking to the staff about. I wanted to bring you in on it and let you know what's happening. Now you have a chance to talk about it. He's not hearing it in front of 80 people and voicing his negativity response in front of 80 people. Yeah. You're one-on-one with breakfast with him. If you get the 2 or 3 people that are most resistant on board before you announce it to everybody, it's a slam dunk once you get them on board. So that's why the meeting before the meeting is the most important meeting.
Wow, that's so good. I think I've been dunked on many times because I haven't done that. So I'm going to change it up.
Change it up. Have the meeting, but always remember before you announce something, who is this going to affect the most, and are they on board with it yet? And it's only going to be a 2 or 3. Just have the meeting before the meeting.
Sure.
And then the meeting is a lot easier.
Yeah, that's very good. Thank you.
Yeah. What else you got, man?
Okay, so for us, I know there's so many different types of churches that reach different types of people and culture and all this. So I'm going to throw this one at you.
Yeah.
As it relates to being a multicultural church, because that's truly our background. I know a lot of people say they are, but I mean, we are very much so. How can we maintain unity in recent years? And not to be political, but I mean, we feel it. A lot of our members feel it. They voice it. And so we're trying to maintain unity in what's very divided culturally, statewide, nationwide around us, and really maybe trying to make the distinction of, yes, there are political feelings and important things that you may hold to, believe in. That's okay. But when it comes to church, it is a kingdom culture and some things we want to make sure we stay healthy on.
Yeah. Well, in this political environment just seems to get stronger and stronger, the divide over the last few years. So we, I'm the founding pastor of South Hills Church. We have a bunch of locations. I don't do a lot of the day-to-day anymore, but a few years ago, I was speaking regularly at one of our campuses in Burbank, Hollywood area. The epitome of liberal. Liberal from the word go. And you've got people in there that are, have their opinion on political, sexual identity, all that stuff. Then you got some people that are more liberal and like, well, no, and they're in the same church. Right. Now, you may not have that great of a divide when you're in a church in Nebraska or your church in, different parts of America. But when you're in Hollywood, it's not a 95.5%. It's a lot closer of 50-50 where it's like, whoa. So I remember, something I did because I was speaking regularly there because we were in between what we call campus pastors. And it's a guidance that I've given to other pastors as well. I literally, this is my cell phone, but I literally held the Bible and I put it above my head.
Right.
And I just said, guys, I said, if I bring up sexual identity, you're gonna there's gonna be so many different opinions. If I bring up this candidate versus this candidate, we're gonna get opinions. If I bring up immigration, we're gonna get this opinion. Okay. I get all that, and we all have different opinions, and we have the right to have a different opinion. I'm not saying that.
Sure.
But this, I held up the Bible. This, we don't have the right to have an opinion. This is just what he says is what we do, period. Now, that's where we need to agree.
Yes.
We need to agree that it's like, well, is that person right or is that person right? Is that person right or is that person right? Is that person right or is that person right? I mean, you click on the news, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, read the New York Times, the whatever. Okay, their opinion here, opinion there, opinion here, opinion there. Okay, at the end of the day, what I just told them, I just said, what really mattered is what does the Bible say? That's our source. That's what we agree upon. So in the not so major things, in the things that are major to this earth, but not as major to eternity, is a way of saying it. We have some varying opinions, but when it comes to the Bible, we have to have unity.
Yes,
that we've got to find unity. Someone has to have the final word. I mean, really. Who has the final word? I remember telling that to a guy that said he didn't believe in God, and a businessman. I was having a very educated conversation with him. And I asked him, I go, who has the final word, though? And he goes, well, what do you mean? I go, who has the final word of right and wrong? You or me? Well, it's just up to us. I go, oh, is it? I said, because I've been in Africa, and if you don't get in certain parts of Africa where the jungle is, there's cannibals, and they're going to kill you at night because they feel like it's a religious ritual. Are they right? No, they're wrong. Oh, wait a minute. You said it matters of our own opinion. And then I said, ultimately, someone has to have the ultimate opinion. Yes. Someone's got to have the ultimate, like, who's the final voice? Anyway, all that to say, when I did that in Burbank, Hollywood campus that we have there, very, very diverse in every subject. I had so many comments come up and say, you're 100% right. We can disagree here, but we can't disagree here. It's got to be the final word has got to be this. And when we decide as a group, this is the final word, it solves a lot of these problems. And I went down to who has the final word in our life.
Yes.
And the final word is whatever God's word says. That's what we choose. That's what this church chooses. That God has the final word. And man, I had a lot of great comments from those who were extremely liberal and those that were way on the other side. They all said, you're right. I mean, something's got to have the final word. It can't be that politician or that politician or this person or that person. It's got to be God.
Yeah.
Something's got to have the final word.
Sure.
And so that for me, when I said at this church, we're just going to choose that this will have the final word.
That's great.
And we're not going to argue that. We're just going to stay true to the Bible. So it seemed to help.
Let's make the church great again.
Yeah.
Let him have the final word.
I'm waiting to have that. I'm getting a hat. I'm going to get a hat that says that and start passing it around. That's a good one. I like it.
Appreciate it,
awesome.
Pastor.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, cool. What else you got going?
Okay, this one, I've been pastoring for years, and you'd think I'd have this down, but I just believe my past, along with other pastors, our experiences, our culture, all these different things, these factors, they really weigh into who we are right now. But we can change, especially if we need to change for the better and for the better of the people we serve. And so this one is along the lines of wisely or accurately allocating resources. I'm looking for a measurement or some way of saying how much in a pie chart should we allow for staff or facilities, missions, and maybe it varies depending on the situation. But I'm just looking for some help in that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I do think, I think it's a great question, Frank, because we're obviously called to be stewards of the finances God gives us and allows us to manage and steward. And I think that's a great question. When it comes to percentages of staff, these are things that I've heard and things that I've put into practice. I've heard as low as 40%. Even lower at times, as high as 50%. Now, keep in mind, that's what I call full burden. So if I have whatever amount of staff and, this executive team gets full benefits, this team gets part benefits, this one gets retirement, this group gets whatever. When I'm saying all in, not what they get paid, all in, what is that percentage? And I think for me, that's an important part. So the compensation is all in, and that percentage is important. And I've seen it as low as 40. I've even seen it at 35, but as high as 50. If you feel like you're pushing it a little higher, I tell people when you feel like you're pushing it a little higher, be careful with that, because those financial adjustments can only be made by hurting people. You're going to fire, let's say all of a sudden it's like financially there's a dip and you're way up there in the percentages, way up there. You're like 65, 70%. There's a financial dip. The whole staff's going to take a 10% cut. You're going to lay off 3 people. Like something's going to happen when you build so much percentage into that. So you want to be really careful not to build it so much. And the only time you really want to go a little bit higher is when you're making what I call a calculated risk and an acceptable loss. So let's say I'm the pastor. I'm running the church. I look and I think, man, I think Frank could really help us. Man, I think he could add a lot of value. I think the way he does assimilation, the way he helps people get connected in the life of the church, he's going to help oversee people's discipleship and giving. I think in a year, what he's going to do is he's going to bring our numbers up and he's going to bring our finances up. Now, I'm going to tell the board, hey, this is a calculated risk and an acceptable loss. We're going to go into a higher percentage for a short time because we're going to pay Frank, but then after about a year, that percentage is going to start coming down again. That's a calculated risk and an acceptable loss. I'm okay if let's say we have to dip into our reserves for 40 grand to keep, because we're going to go a little bit in the red because we hired this person or whatever. I'm okay with that. But what's the acceptable loss? It can't be 400 grand, but it could be 40 or 50 or 60 or whatever. And then a certain amount of time. You can kind of push that percentage up, but you want it to know it's going to come back down. I've also heard on mortgages, if you end up having any debt, I've heard 25% or less is always great. Okay. I've heard about people, giving missions, I think is extremely important, both local, national, and global. And I've seen, a lot of people operate in that 10%. A lot of people operate doing a thing on the outside, call it kingdom builders, legacy, all in. I've heard 20 different names of how they're going to raise funds for missions on the outside. So those are just some of the percentages. I don't know if you have any follow-up questions to that, but those are some of the percentages that I've kind of worked with and monitor.
No, that's very helpful, and it builds on some of the ideas and training I've already received, but that really put some pieces together for me.
Good. Watch that and monitor that. And remember, you can push up a little bit, but it can't be forever. You can't keep living up there because you're setting yourself up, and there's an old saying that says, we shape the building, then the building shapes us. So it's like we shape the building as in we got this big building and we got 42% of our income goes to take care of this bill. And we got this big staff and 50% of our income. Well, now you got 8 left, So we shape sort of the building. We shape sort of the ministry, in our budgets, and then it shapes us for what we really get to spend or what we really get to do. And you don't want to get to a point where it's like everything just goes to bills.
Right.
You don't want to do that. So,
No.
but I do think I'll give you some things that I think are important. Some other, if it's okay with you, some things I think that might be helpful to you. Stuff to consider for the future. Deferred maintenance line on your budget. I think that's if you can begin to start tucking away a few dollars for deferred maintenance, when that $28,000 air conditioner goes out, or whatever it is, it's not like, oh gosh, now just pull it from our reserves. It's like, no, we've got $45,000 in our deferred maintenance. We know it's there for that reason. It doesn't feel like, it's just like, it's there. So we have multiple properties. And so what we do is we look and we have someone do about a once a year, twice a year inspection. Like, how long is that air conditioner going to last? How long is that heater going to last? How long is the parking lot going to last? How long is the chairs going to last? How long is that sound going to last? And so we're calculating like, okay, when we think we're going to have to spend that. So we know we want reserves in this deferred maintenance account. So when something happens, it's not like, oh, the whole world's coming to an end. It's like, well, we have to spend 50 grand, but that's why we have 100 grand in that account. It doesn't feel as much. An appreciation account, I think, is really important. Appreciation account is going to be things like, man, how do we make sure to appreciate the people on our team, and not just we do a once a year volunteer banquet, but it's like, man, that staff's killing it. I'm going to send that staff member away on a 3-night stay at a Marriott resort. It's going to cost $2,000, but that's okay, because I have the money. Okay. And you're able to appreciate and honor team members in a way. One thing I always say, Frank, is train your team so well that they could go anywhere, but treat them so well that they don't.
Oh, that's good.
And that appreciation line can also, so there's things that you can consider as you're thinking about your budget, like what's an appreciation line look like? What does emissions dollars look like? Maybe that's an outside or inside thing. What does deferred maintenance look like? Those are things, coaching, developing, like, okay, well, what are we allotting to that for you, for your team, for whatever that looks like. Now, again, I think some people look at that as an expense. I look at it as an investment. Yes. If they get better, the church gets better.
Yes.
And we have to be able to helping them grow, whatever that looks like, furthering education, conferences, ongoing coaching, whatever. I've always had that. Like, okay, you're going to get coached. You're going to go to one conference a year. You're going to get coached. You're going to, whatever that is, we're going to do everything we can to make you better. That's why I say train people so well that they could go anywhere. Just like, man, look at my staff. They're incredible because of the investment I've made in them. But then treat them so well that they don't. Because the top 4 or 5 people that are closest to you, besides your wife and kids and all that, but the 4 or 5 people closest to you in your life, being at the ministry, will dictate the speed of the church.
Oh, okay.
And the size of the church. And so you got to invest in those people. You got to make them better. So those are all line items. All those things could be line items that you could work into a budget.
Okay. Very helpful.
Yeah. Got anything else today?
That's wonderful. Well, I'll ask this question. It may be a whole nother segment, but I'm thinking ahead quite a few years, but I haven't heard a lot of people speak on the topic of gracefully, wisely making those steps towards not just retirement, but actually moving into a different place, maybe for a lead pastor who's getting older, because I know it varies in age when someone should step down. But rather than stepping down or retiring, I think a better word is transition.
Yep.
And I haven't heard a lot of people speak into that to make just the overall church healthier.
Yeah, I do think a lot of people, I think the old statement or the old language was pastor emeritus. Basically, we're going to pay this guy for another 5 or 6 years for doing next to nothing. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm not saying that's wrong at all. I think and believe that if pastors don't reinvent themselves, then they outdate themselves.
That's good. So good.
So it's kind of like this. Like I have two coaches in my life. Now, we have a coaching organization, all that stuff, but I got 2 coaches in my life. I've been getting coached for well over 10 years from these 2 guys. Both of them, one of them is 65, one of them I think is 70. They coach. They get paid very well for coaching. One of them is still working at the church that they helped, and one of them is still a little bit working at the church and kind of being a coach for the church, and they're giving him a little bit of money. But then also he's now coaching not only that group, but he's all doing some other coaching on the side. The other one's just purely doing coaching. The reason I say all that is they reinvented themselves. If they don't reinvent themselves, then you outdate yourself. And if you don't want to be an old dog, learn new tricks. Right? Because I think what happens to a pastor is like, I only know how to pastor this church. This is all I've ever done. And I'm like, I just think that there's more there. Like, why can't you transition to a role at the church, be an awesome coach, help the church expand in multi-site, learn how to do that. Yeah. Maybe do some speaking and coaching and writing yourself but you have to build that. If you're not working towards that, it's like, well, perfect example. A guy in Arizona, back up a few years ago. I'm coaching him. The church has got 2 campuses. We got it up to 4 campuses. He's like, I got to think about my future. I said, okay, let's move you over the next year. Let's start transitioning you over to sort of being a pastor, kind of the founding pastor / guy that's going to kind of coach the team and help expand. So he took it from 4 to 6 in the last year and a half. So he's getting paid from the church less, but he's getting paid. So he's expanded them. He's coaching the team. He's expanded the church. It's a part-time role. He's still getting paid decently from there. But then also he took on a coaching role over a different bunch of different pastors and different things. And now he's reinvented himself. Well, he reinvented himself because 7 years ago he came to me and said, 6 years ago, he came to me and said, hey man, I want to get coaching by you, but we want to grow our church, which we did. We doubled the church, but we want to grow it. And but I also got to look to my future. And so we started figuring that out for him as well. He had to get better. Otherwise he would still just remain the pastor that knows how to pastor. Right. And I think, man, stay in touch with the local church, but make those older years the most fruitful.
Right.
They can be the most fruitful because now you are expanding leaders. And that's the 5th level of leadership, when you are leading leaders who lead leaders. Mm-hmm. That's what we got him to do. That's what I got the guy in Ohio to do. That's what we got the guy in Florida to do. We've done it all over the place. And we brought them to this place, and they are sitting and perched up in an incredible place for their life. So I do believe there's a place for it. I do believe that pastors should do that when it makes sense. But you have to be someone that's making yourself better in the process, because otherwise you're not going to have much more to offer, and it will be looked at as a somewhat of a financial burden.
Yes.
And I see that way more often. And I tell guys all the time, don't be a financial burden. Make yourself valuable before you hand the baton of the everyday role of lead pastor. Make yourself so valuable. But you got to invest in yourself to make yourself valuable.
Wow. Very helpful.
Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Well, hey, man, we're running out of time, but man, I hope you got a lot out of today. And man, I sure do appreciate your heart. You have an amazing heart, an amazing church. And man, thanks for stopping by and hanging out with us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you for helping the pastors.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, buddy. Have a good day, man.
Bless.
See you. Bye-bye. Hey, thanks for checking out the podcast today with my buddy Frank. Hope you enjoyed it. I want to remind you to check out all things churchboom.org. So many things for you to be a part of that will help you and your team grow individually, as a team, and as a church. So make sure to check out churchboom.org, and we will see you on the next Fly on the Wall podcast.